Welcome back to the next newest current. Welcome back to Loan Officer Life, Hustle, Heart, and Home Ownership. I am joined by Darren Copeland. And Darren, this is like a very overdue conversation.
Right on.
We have a mutual friend in Frazier, Jason Frazier. Everybody knows Jason. You two just published the Green Zone Project. I want to get into that.
Right on.
You're the founder and CEO of Summit Lending. You're clearly a Mahomes Chiefs fan. I know that as well. I'm a Lions guy. Don't hold that against me.
That's right, man. We're cheering for you.
But man, it's good to have you on. I was loving our pre-live conversation, and hopefully we'll dig into some of those items. But again, thanks for joining me.
Hey, man, thanks. It's crazy. Thanks again for having me, Brian. This whole mortgage world it's once you dig into it, it's a really small arena, right? Yeah. And it's like I tell I've got a senior in high school now, and I tell Drew all the time, I'm like, bro, listen, dude, always be cool, because you just never know, right? You just never know where, the place is very, very small. So connections here. You just never know. I told Drew when he started kindergarten, I'm like, dude, listen, hey man, no matter what you do in life, you're starting your networking in your database right now.
There it is.
In kindergarten, right? And he looked at me like, whatever, Dad. But now he's starting to get it. And dude, let's just say I'm 50. It's close enough, right?
Yeah, me too. Right. But I'm on the closer side of 60 these days.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not that mature. I don't feel, that mature. But the crazy thing is, man, in the last 30 days, we've done a couple loans. I'm not knee deep in, I have my own personal production team that does all the stuff. But dude, I've got 2 guys from high school in the last 30 days that we've helped purchase homes. And you just never know. Right. You just never know. So just always be cool, right? Whether it's your friends, family, past coworkers, anything like that, man, because it'll come back around.
ABC, always be cool, which could also be always be coaching. You're a name that, even though you and I have, we've met kind of on different virtual rooms, and this is like the first time we've really had a conversation, but your name comes up so often. I hear about DC this, DC that, and one of the greatest coaches out there. I want to spend a little time talking about coaching, because I think it'll be a good segue into the book.
Yeah.
But as far as I can tell, you're like one of the early adopters, at least of our generation, one of the early adopters of not just being coached, but coaching others. And I mean, you just gave a great example. You were coaching your kid when he was in kindergarten about building his database. I mean, come on, who does that?
Exactly. Right. Someone said the other day, and it really hit me hard. They said sometimes people grow up into the people they wish they had in their lives when they were kids. And I was like, I'm that guy, right? Like, nothing against my parents, but I needed like a really cool uncle back in the day that would, teach me the ways of the Force and have me like a young Jedi, and like, dude, this is the way it's going to happen. Like, this is the way the things are going to roll. So be on the lookout for this. So, I jumped into this business, Brian, back in 2003, and being a former athlete, I knew that whatever I got into, whether it was real estate, insurance, mortgage lending, anything like that, I knew I had to have accountability. I knew I needed to have a mentor that had been there, done that. So it was 2003. Dude, I'm broke, right? I have no money, right? And this is really before, there was, social media wasn't that prevalent, right? I mean, you had the internet stuff, and, but back then, man, mailers were a big, big thing. So I'm in the business, and about 6 months into the business, Brian, I've got this advertisement. He was a dude on the East Coast, Brian Sachs. He was a coach at the time. Really followed, if anyone remembers some old school names, remember Dan Kennedy?
Yeah.
Dan Kennedy was like the godfather of sales and direct marketing and stuff like that. But anyway, Brian was really good at that. And I went to an event in Miami, and I didn't know what a funnel was. I look back and go, that was an amazing funnel, right? So you have a group of people, right, that you have in the audience, and then you get them all fired up, and then you have a funnel, right? You have the scarcity thing of like, hey, by the way, we have this mastermind coaching and there's only 10 spots and you got to sign up by today, right? Just that whole thing. Dude, I was like hook, line, and sinker. Like, dude, I'm practically begging them to take my money.
Right.
And I tell this, I've told this in other interviews before, but back in 2003, I signed up for this coaching platform. It was $1,500 a month. Okay. In today's dollars, that's like $3,400.
Yeah.
I didn't have it. Right. But the one thing that I knew, Brian, is like, dude, I believe in myself. I know if I follow this plan, I'm going to get at least one extra closing a month. So, because I'm always a thing of like, hey, if I'm going to do something, how can I pay for it? Right.
Yeah.
And I knew that, hey, I know I'm going to do this. I know I'm going to follow the plan. I'm going to put in the work because I'm not going to go broke because it comes back on me. Right. So I've always been like, hey, I've never been, a finger pointer and blaming, whether it's markets or people or whatever. I'm like, dude, how can I get better?
Right.
And man, that was literally the best thing I ever did in my career. So it started there and moved into some other coaching platforms and masterminds. And I turned into being a coach. And I loved it, man. Like I love helping other people seeing things that maybe they don't see in themselves.
Sure.
Just always lifting them up. Right. And dude, it's just worked out well. Like the coaching part, like even when we were talking before we went live, is I look back, everything I attribute to goes back to the coaches and the mentors that I've had in my life. And for those who are listening, I always try to bring value and the light and bring some positivity. But like, find your mentor, find your coach, because dude, probably like you, Brian, invested several $100,000 over the years, but dude, it's been free. It's paid for itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no shortage of coaches out there today, especially like squarely in our industry.
Yep.
And I don't say that in a negative way. I think it's actually a good thing because, this guy's not for this person, right? And vice versa. And so part of that process is finding, you want to find someone that's actually walked the walk and can demonstrate, that they've done it. And there's plenty of coaches that, Bill Belichick's probably one of the extremes, because I don't know that he ever played a down of football, but the dude can coach, right? Well, up until this past weekend, anyway.
He's just brilliant, and you know what? You're dead on, man. Like, you don't want to find, it's not a knock against anyone, because I don't have anyone in mind off the top of my head, but you don't want to have like some middle manager that got ousted because middle managers are kind of going away in this industry right now. But you don't want to have a middle manager that has always been there just managing people, but never ever was a big producer, right? Or never had been there and done that. And I think that's so critical, because you got to find someone that knows what they're talking about. And then also you have to be very careful, make sure you get in a group that's a true coaching group, and it's not a recruiting factory that's masked the coaching group.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and you have to sift through it for sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So, 2 decades plus, we'll say that.
Yeah.
2 decades plus since you've been at this. A lot has changed, but really it feels like it's still the basic blocking and tackling that separates the top, the upper echelon producers from the averages and the below averages. Right. Is that still your perspective?
100%. Over the last 20 years, the tech has changed, right? There's some strategies, but the thing is that where a lot of people miss out is like a lot of these techs and shiny objects is created to avoid the actual sales part of it, right? And you still can't get around, because it all boils down to, whether it's 2003 or 25 years later, is, dude, you still have to have relationships no matter what the tech is. Now, you can use tech to enhance experiences and, kind of solidify a few things, but man, you still have to have that human interaction. I tell people all the time is, this business, you're doing 2 things. You're maintaining the relationships that you already have, and you're always creating new relationships. Okay. And if you time block, and that's, one of the reasons why Frazier and I did the book, the Green Zone Project, is just talking about time blocking on steroids, right? And I think that's where 90% of the LOs fail is, we're all good salespeople and we struggle with ADD massively. All right, let's just be honest,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I've already been thinking about my fantasy team. Once you said Mahomes, I'm, thinking about the quarterback I'm going to draft tonight in tonight's fantasy draft. But, ADD is a real thing. But to counteract that, you got to be in control of your calendar, because if you're not going to control your own calendar, it's going to be controlled for you. And that's
Right.
where the time blocking comes in so immensely, of just time blocking, that time in the morning to work on those relationships, build the relationships, because at the end of the day, no matter what tech you have, you can have the best tech in the world, but if you've got zero referral partners or you have no way to connect your past clients, dude, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, nobody's touching your tech at that point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. I like this idea of the human in the loop, right?
Yeah.
The tech, and we can call it point of sale, we can call it CRM, we can call it tools like FinLocker, et cetera.
Right.
The tech should be your scale, right? It's never going to replace you as the human in the loop,
Right.
but it should scale your capabilities and ability to serve more people more often. And in some cases, have this ever present ability so that you're there all the time when they need you. Let's shift a little bit into the Green Zone Project. I'd love to start with like the title of the book. There's got to be a story there, and I'm sure it's going to come back to this little time blocking exercise.
Time blocking, and of course, it's going to revolve around sports, right?
Yeah.
And I should have had my Green Zone prop closer to me. I got one across the room. All right, so if you guys are football players and the NFL season's on and you're sitting there watching TV whatnot, they have the NFL red zone, right? So the red zone's that commercial that anytime a team gets in the 20-yard line, they're in the red zone because they're getting ready to score either a field goal or a touchdown. So I got to thinking, I'm like, man, what would be like a really good, cool name to, name this book and just the overall philosophy of this, right? So I'm like, ooh, let's call it the Green Zone, right? Because the way I visualize this, Brian, it's the ultimate LO playbook, right? Yeah. And you're inside the 20-yard line, so you're getting ready to score either a new relationship or you're getting ready to score a new loan, right? So that green zone time is your money making time. So that's why we called it green, money making, but it's all about getting ready to score and get some closed deals. And it just goes through time blocking. It talks exactly what I've done for 20 years. More importantly, it's not just a theory, Brian, but it actually gives you tactical ways of, all right, every Monday through Friday, I'm going to block out 2 hours. So let's say, like, for my green zone, it's like 7:30 to 10:30 every single morning. No one else is going to interrupt that time. Like, I'm doing my thing.
Yeah.
And that thing, I encourage people, number one, I'm going to give you ideas of what to do, but make it your own, right? That could be time for your social media. I talk all the time about doing 5 gratitude video calls a day, like calling up Brian and saying, dude, hey man, thank you so much for having me on that podcast. It was amazing. You do awesome things. You're just a cool dude. And I mean that. Have an awesome day. So, you've got the gratitude calls, you've got Google reviews. I mean, you've got so many different things of ways that you can go out there. Basically, you're just always on the lookout for communication and reasons to reach out to people and lift them up, man. And if people would just time block and do that for 9-10 hours a week for 90 days, like, there's literally no way they can fail. But again, at the end of the day, the reason why we did this is because us producers as loan officers, man, we struggle with time management, bro.
Yeah. It's you would think we'd be better with all the tools that have been introduced, but that 4-letter acronym, right? That ADHD. Yeah. Actually, the symptoms are worse when you start layering on additional, stimuli, like the additional technology. So,
right,
the time blocking is so critical. I had not heard. Frazier never told me about the sports connection. You know, the green zone to the red zone totally makes sense to me now.
Right.
So I'm curious. I did a green book. I don't know, almost 2 years ago. It was more of a collaboration. There was about 30 some people that each wrote a chapter.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious. Was this the first book that you've published, or have you done this before?
No, so this is the first book because back in the day, Brian, I was rolling out of high school and in college with a I would say around a C minus to D plus
degrees
in English. And I think a lot of it is because I was a fairly decent kid back in the day. And I think the teachers / professors were just like, man, this dude's trying, but it just ain't clicking. But so we're going to pass him. Right. So it was one of those things. But again, coming to technology is, it was just a version of me laying everything out there and recording it and using technology to put that in a written form. So I think it's very, very powerful. And the thing is, the book on Amazon is super cheap, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing I want to convey to everyone is if you guys check this out, like just don't let that $9 be like, I'm going to get it and I'm going to let dust collect on it. Because I really think people would take it more seriously if I charge like $500 or $1,000. It's not
Sure.
about the money, right? Because it's literally, I'm at a point in my career like, all right, here's all my secrets. It works. Go, right? Just go, right? Because a lot of people help me in my career along the way, different mentors and things like that. So that's where I'm at in my career is like, hey, if there's anything I can do that's going to help someone in this business, go. There's more. Yeah. There's so much business, abundant mindset, all that fun stuff. But dude, if people just grab this book and make it I have a couple of my buddies in the last couple of weeks, they're like, man, I read this thing in a whole day and I'm on chapter 6 and here's my results. Right. Yeah. So seeing that and seeing those results from people who have actually taken action and implemented, like, dude, that's pretty cool.
Well, when you talk about having this, abundance mindset and sharing, literally sharing your playbook, we also know the reality. And the reality is the majority of people probably that even buy the book aren't going to put into practice 50, 30, 20%
right
of the playbook, right?
Right.
But if just one person does and it changes the trajectory of their business, right. I get excited about these kind of conversations because it's not about that one loan officer whose career might change. That's great.
Right.
But it's the hundreds of consumers and home buyers and homeowners that loan officer positively impacts. And it's pretty rewarding to know that, you're part of these hundreds of people's lives that are now homeowners because they worked with, somebody right. that read the Green Zone project. Those are cool things to kind of talk about. Yeah. I want to hit on one thing real quick because again, 2+ decades in the industry.
Yep.
We already talked about the fundamentals are the fundamentals, but how have you managed to continue to evolve and stay on top of kind of the trends, but more so the technology? Because you're not a stuck in the mud old school originator. You've adapted and adopted technology along the way. How do you manage staying ahead of what's coming down the pipe from whether it's a product or program or even technology?
So here's one thing, Brian, and I love the question that I've never stopped doing is learning. And because you can always learn, you can always get better. I mean, my gosh, dude, I'm so hard on myself. If I treated anyone else the way I talk to myself, it would be really, really bad. So there's that patience thing, but there's so much things that I think that we're still going to accomplish, but I still have a coach, right?
Yeah.
He's amazing. He's on time and he's been there, done that. I think everyone, I don't care what level you're at, whether you're this way, Patrick, everyone has a quarterbacks coach, these athletes, all that. So there's always room for improvement because sometimes you might think you have it all together, but there's still some blind spots that you can improve upon.
Sure.
So I think it's always number one, continue to learn. But number two is just really getting good at delegating And having the staff, I've been super blessed. My wife and her team, they handle the operations at our brokerage, and then I have a few other key players in place that handle the loan officers' issues, marketing, like all the, because there's just so many things. There's no way that you can handle all of it. So continue the coaching and just being really good at delegating and building out your team, man. That's the key for success, for long-term success.
So for the loan officers that are tuning in, let's just say for the LOs that are watching that aren't in the top 20%, right?
Yeah.
They're somewhere in the middle, the mid zone, if you will. They're at midfield. They haven't quite got to the green zone yet.
Right.
Not everyone is in a space in their career where they can spend X hundred or $1,000 on coaching. Can you just talk about the importance of finding an accountability partner, and even if it's a group setting where maybe it's only $100 a month to start, but just the value and importance of finding that tribe and that mentor relationship, wherever you are in your that financial journey for that loan officer.
Exactly. Because that thing, like I mentioned earlier, when I got in coaching, at the time I wasn't married, I didn't have a family. So, me putting coaching on a 0%, credit card, that was my choice, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have to run that past anyone. So that stuff is real. There's a lot of good group coaching out there. Like you said, $100-$200 a month. And as long as you're putting in the work, guys, if you can get at least one extra deal in 12 months, that should pay for it.
Yeah.
So that's where I would start. If money's a challenge, start in a group coaching setting, meet some friends, because just like you, Brian, if you think about in our career, some of your best friends and some of the best ideas that you ever got was going to either a mastermind meetup or, going to different events and just networking. Like, I still love doing that. And,
Sure.
we talked about the fall as like conference season, and sometimes it's a little overload and you have to say no sometimes, but dude, I love it. Like, at least every 2 to 3 months I'm out of town, and, now you're just hanging out with your friends and you're sharing everything. So I would go, small coaching, find an accountability partner. But another thing that we talk about in this book is having a 90-day goal plan.
Yeah.
And that 90-day goal plan is legit. I don't understand it. Like, people, like, they hear this stuff, but they don't actually do it. So here's another little golden nugget for you guys. Even to this day, what I do, whether it's quarterly or every 6 months, I'll go to a hotel by myself, whether it's here in Kansas City or I'll go to wherever, and I'll just have 24 hours to myself that I write down things that I've accomplished the last 90 days. I'll update my 90-day goal, and that's personal, health, spiritual, financial, and production, and it's all lined out. And I think that's where people miss it is, dude, if you just don't take the time to put down your goals and readjust every 90 days, you're missing a huge opportunity. So if you do, you get into some small coaching or some big coaching, and then you also in conjunction do that 90-day goal plan, then you always have your North Star in front of you as far as where you're heading to.
Love that. I mean, that's what the biggest corporations do, right? The public companies have they on a regular basis are reviewing past performance.
Yep.
Against goals, and then resetting goals, because the market moves. We've seen it.
Yep.
The spring buying season maybe is starting to happen right now, right? And so most people probably had a goal and a budget that was front loaded in the year, and now it's probably going to happen more in the second half of the year. So you just have to be nimble, flexible, and willing to adjust.
You got to have a frapping plan in place, Brian, right? You got to have a plan in place, because if not, this business is so reactionary. And I know there's so many LOs out there that they live every day. They jump into their checks, they jump into their emails, and they let that control the rest of their day. And next thing you know, a week goes by, a month goes by, a year, and they're just in the same cycle. Right? And that's why the time blocking is so important, because you got to take time for yourself.
Yeah. And the best time to start is right now, wherever you are, as a loan officer, the best time to start is right now. And I would start by going to Amazon and buying this $9.99 Green Zone project. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for y'all. Darren, it's been great to connect and have this conversation. I appreciate you joining me on Loan Officer Life today.
Absolutely, man. Hey, this went really, really fast, man. So thanks again for having me. And anytime you want me back, I feel like dude, we could talk about this stuff all day long.
Maybe we'll bring Frazier back. We'll the three of us can. You and I won't get a word in, but we'll.
Now it's a party.
Bring Frazier on.
Now it's a party. Let's go.
Thanks,
Awesome. Man. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Come back again next Friday for the next episode of Loan Officer Life.